right, y'all. It's the time of the day that you've been waiting for. It is the one show on air that will take you from the boardroom to the bedroom, from politics to the pulpit, and everything in between with your favorite friends. You are about to join the crew for Fresh Fire as we do what we do all together. Tune in.
What's good, everybody? Welcome to the crew. We up in here. We are here. Thank you so much for tuning in to us. WHOV 88.1 FM. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube, Instagram. We're on everything in the city. Wherever you got a phone and access to an app, we own it. And that's because of our producer extraordinaire, Jason Covington. Come on, let's get it up, Jason. Jason, are you ever gonna come in front of the cameraman and at least so people can know who you are? Because right now they think you a ghost or something. A fan. They don't even know who you are, man.
We'll wait.
You wait on that. At some point before the season's over, you need to come in front of the camera. But for those listening, thank you so much. Call your friends today. Because we're going to have a good conversation. But let me get into the introductions. We got Tony Ton here on his day job. He is Commonwealth Attorney, City of Hampton. Also, he used to be called Pastor Law. Do we still call him Pastor Law?
Shankum Ton.
Yeah, we got a new name. Shankum Ton. That's what he is now.
Yeah.
What's up, Shankum Ton?
What's going on?
Man, how you working on your clothing line? You know what I'm saying? Your sayings and all that. You know what I'm saying? You gotta get
That's right. I'm just saying, I said what I said, and I will shank you. I'll shank you.
If there's a person that designs T-shirts and you're listening, drop a comment on the Facebook and YouTube channel. Tom want to do business with you. He trying to get T-shirts made.
I'll shank you.
I'm gonna support that.
You will support that?
I'm gonna support it.
I have a bell, a yellow bell that says "Not today." And if somebody come in there with some foolishness, I hit it. Not today. Not today.
Now you need a shank in your office.
I think we need that. No. We need that. We need that. Not today. Not today.
No, not today.
I like it.
Not today.
We need
that bell. I ring.
Because some stuff we deal with, see, you know good and well, that's beyond
foolishness.
Listen, and I know this is not CP on a political show, but some stuff is just people are on the spectrum way beyond where they should be. So I need a not today on my desk.
Is it the spectrum or is it just
spectrum.
Drama? I have found that people love and enjoy drama.
They do.
I was talking to a kid. The kid was like 13, 14 years old.
Fooling with us today.
He said, I asked the kids, I was talking to some teenagers, and I said, who in here really like drama? The kid raised his hand.
Yes, they do.
He said he enjoys drama.
Because if you're raised in dysfunction, what else do you know?
Right. I get it, but Lord, you enjoy it.
If I'm raised in dysfunction and that's all I know, if I don't have it, I'm going to create it. That's how this
reality
works.
shows, all of that. It's the rise of drama.
But it's what I know.
But it's going to get you shot.
But a lot of kids, you said already, don't
they're
believe they're going to live.
to death anyway, so.
But let me introduce Sia. Sia, how you doing, Sia?
I'm doing that.
Southeast Sia, how you doing? Southeast
with that.
I was talking about that associated with me.
I'm just asking how you doing.
No, I'm doing well. The Eagles are doing well. You know, my friend's family doing well. There are some new ADH medications coming out. So those of us with our neurospicy brains are getting the help we need.
I so appreciate your openness and transparency about what you deal with.
Yeah,
I mean that sincerely.
It's a journey.
Because you shared everything on this show about what you deal with. That's real good. Bishop. You ain't a bishop up here today, though.
No.
You just Ray.
Ray is in the building once again, and see, I probably have several different diagnoses that I do not have prescriptions for, so I cannot be held responsible for what I might say on this show today.
You know what? That's another piece to the puzzle.
So I admit that I'm crazy. So hey, it just is what it is.
Right.
Okay? I'm just saying.
You know we believe in therapy and diagnosis.
But what Ray do you know that ain't crazy?
Listen,
I mean, every Ray you know that.
I go to therapy. I go once a quarter.
You know they got issues.
I go once a quarter.
I don't know that.
Once a quarter?
Yeah, once a quarter. I go once a quarter.
Look, before we go to break, because we got to go to break, let's give a shout out to Alvy and everybody. Alvian is not with us again today. She's not feeling well. So Alvian, get well, because
Yes.
we need you back soon.
Please, sis.
This show
Mediate all of
Please.
this.
Sia's like, I'm tired of being on the
Oh,
system.
my God.
Holding it down.
But I'm your
I love you. I love all of you equally.
You see she went to first. We're going to take a break. We got to get to the show. We hope you're enjoying it so far here on The Crew. We're back on The Crew. Thank y'all for checking this out. Again, we want you to invite people. Look, subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Crew. We really need you to do that. Like our Facebook page, Pastor Study. We still got Pastor Study name. That's a whole nother story we'll get into later, but you can still check that out. But look, y'all, you know, it's interesting how we are positioned for this show, you know, Ray, because we got the elected officials on one side. And
Them people over there.
Whatever.
And I just, you know, as a citizen, I want to have a conversation.
I want to know.
Go ahead.
You know, I'm just, you know, listen, I know I have the responsibility, Ray, you have the responsibility to educate our congregants and tell them to exercise their right to vote, and we do all that kind of stuff. But every time I look at the news, I'm just disgusted.
Just spit it out.
I'm disgusted by what I see in our political system.
Yeah.
It's just a mess. and I think that, you know, for us to be, as we think we are, the best country in the world and all that, like, how come we can't even pay, like, we gotta go to the 9th hour, the 11th hour just to extend the time to have a budget?
Oh, that's
Don't
easy.
know country that's the best country in the world do stuff like that. It's just little things that I keep seeing that's happening. And I'm like, you know what? I know I have to exercise my right to vote. I'm going to vote because my ancestors died for me to go to these polls. But I'm just frustrated at times by what I'm seeing. So can y'all help us out, please?
Sure.
Yeah. First, I would say that is a very admirable reason to vote, but I would also extend that to include if you don't vote and you want things to change, they never will.
Sad.
So voting is not for everyone, because not everyone understands the history or knows the history, but not just an exercise in obligation, but it's also an exercise in strategy. Because if you don't vote, you're voting for the opposite side, right? And so I just want to put that out there. If you want change, you have to vote for change.
I agree to that.
But it's still just the first step. The second step is to be actively engaged in the process. Where we have, I think, seen a drop off is in the civic participation part. So when I'm at the dais and I'm looking out at people that are advocating for certain legislation, I am not often seeing young people, with the exception of some of the education bills and anti-trans kids bills that are coming through. And I do not see a lot of Black people. And so it's as if our voices are absent from conversations. So when I hear things like, I don't like what's going on, and I'm like, me neither. I would love some help in Richmond to get things to change. And so I hear that. I just want to say, just for the record, voting isn't always about the past. It is also about the future, right?
100%.
And so then the parts that I think that, you discuss, whether it's the budget or whether it's, dysfunction within parties, I do not feel like the people have required excellence from their politicians. And they have not done that on the front side, and also have not done that on accountability. Because a lot of these folks have been in office for decades. And so to me, it's interesting to hear, some of the input on some of the people that aren't doing well, but the people that are doing exactly what we're doing, we're having to beg folks to come out and support. And so it's like, yes, I have to give someone something to vote for, but I also need people to show up and vote and do the work too. So it's got to be a conversation.
Okay.
But that's one thing that I would just start off with. But I know
what can I say?
Sure we'll get into.
Yeah, because on a federal level, because I know your state level. I'm talking right now federal level. Let's take the election. Presidential election is coming around soon. Right now, I think we can all forecast who probably the presidential nominee is going to be for each party.
Maybe.
Potentially.
Maybe.
If there are legal things on Trump that...
Maybe.
Okay, so let me just say.
One in jail and one is still alive.
Let me just say, right.
Maybe.
As of today.
As of today, I would still say maybe.
Okay, so if even in the party, if all the legal loopholes were gotten through, what you end up with on one side is an 80-plus-year-old man. On the other side, you end up with somebody who is a one-term president, twice indicted, facing multiple lawsuits, has been found guilty of sexual assault, and still wildly popular in his party. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, with a country that we claim to be, and I love America. Let me put that out there because somebody go call stage to send us a post. He's answering. No, I'm not anti. But are you telling me that these right now are the two best candidates that we have on both sides to choose from?
So what I'll say is this. Let me put that on pause for a second as far as are they the two best candidates, because I think a lot of that has to do with our two-party system. So I'll stop there. But back to your first question. Elections have consequences.
Yes.
And here's the problem that we are dealing with now. There are continual ramifications of the 2016 election that we're dealing with, because when you had people who said it was it was Bernie or bust, and said, I'd rather have 4 years of Trump instead of 8 years of Hillary, and they did not vote, and Hillary did not galvanize enough popularity within the base to get her the votes that she needed. And then clearly there were many in the independent area who voted for Trump as well. So in his 4 years, he did a whole lot of damage. In his 4 years, there were a lot of state legislatures that were conservative as well, because many times those districts that go for the Republican, that state district will go for Republican. So now you have state legislatures that were Republican. What did they do when they got into power? We came up on 2020. It's time for a census. It's time for redistricting. And what happened? You had a lot of gerrymandering that took place. So during that gerrymandering, you had individuals who carved out election districts that were beneficial to their parties. Many of them were conservative districts. So now let's fast forward it to 2023. You can't pass a budget. Why? In the Senate, where you got to run the entire state, where it's more balanced, because now they can't just appease to their base. They have to appease to the middle ground as well, and they can't be too far extreme.
Right.
In the House of Representatives, you can appease to just your base if your base is drafted in such a manner that it is completely red, and you don't have any worry that someone that is moderate or that's blue is going to be able to unseat you. Now, you may be able to have a primary, but outside of a primary, you're not going to really have any issues. And mainly in the primary is who's more extreme. It's not who's more moderate, it's who's more extreme that typically wins in those primary. So they're in the House. And so they're saying, I'm not going to pass a budget because my people going to vote for me regardless of whether we have some type of budget or some type of new bill that's going to lift the rate, what is the ceiling? The debt ceiling, the raise the rate, the debt ceiling. So they didn't have any issues. They're not having any issues. And those same individuals, because McCarthy said, okay, this is bad for the country, and if we don't raise this debt ceiling, it's going to cause us to default on our loans, and we're going to have bad credit, which is going to have a major impact on our commerce and on our financial market. Yep. He said, we're going to get something passed, and so if I got to work with the Democrats to get it done, I'll work with the Democrats. Well, they ousted him. because he came across as someone who was willing to work across the aisle, even though he would lie and he would do other stuff too.
And don't forget, he empowered them.
He empowered them.
So let me make a statement and ask you a question. Okay, so one of the things you said was that Trump did damage, right? His supporters would argue against that, right? His supporters would say he did exactly what he said he was going to do. I'm going to get Supreme Court justices on the bench. I'm going to get judges on the bench. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, which is partly the reason why evangelicals fell in love with him, invited him into the churches, because he ran on this conservative idea, even though his actions and people thought he was a certain way. They still said, as long as you do what you say you're going to do, we'll be good.
The issue is what it is that he says he's going to do.
Let me, because he came from me. So no. But you asked the question about damage. So I want to deal with, because I got an answer for you.
Right, because those who support him would say it's not damage. It was he did what he said he was going to do.
It's not about what he did; it's what he stands for.
I agree
That's
with
most important. Because if you are truly an evangelical, then you should be living by the principles of the Bible. And if you are living by the principles of a Bible, then you're not supporting someone who has been seen to be or proven to be an adulterer, who has allegedly cheated on all of his wives. Some of them allegedly were porn stars and paid them all allegedly. Hold on, let me go there. Who has race baited forever and a day, don't mind being racist, don't mind doing the dog whistles, don't mind treating people that are brown and black and from countries of black and brown origin, don't mind calling them S-holes of countries and things of that nature, don't mind, but yet you're a Christian and yet you're someone who's living by the principles. So I have to say, is it about the policy or is it about what he stands for?
Well, the personality.
It's the underlying racism.
But I think we can also prove damage in a sense of, and this is one of the things that I really wish a lot of Christians would sit down and think about before going to vote. How you identify as a Christian, which part of the Bible you are prioritizing, right? Because really and truly, if someone comes to you and says, you know what, I'm anti-abortion and I'm anti-gay marriage, and that just checks all the boxes for you, you have not fully understood the gospel, because now you're being racially profiled, you're being over prosecuted in some areas, and you're also being overtaxed. And so some of the very things that Jesus was flipping the tables over, you were supporting because you think you can lead a single issue life. And as Black people in America, we do not have the luxury, as Audre Lorde said, of leading single issue politics, because we don't have single issue lives. So they got us in 2001 under Bush. They did. They got us with gay marriage and they got us with being anti-abortion. And look how that worked out for us. And it's I see it happening again, where if you were to look at all of the issues that are impacting, let's say for pastors, because pastors will invite, all kinds of people into their churches. If you were to look at the candidates that line up with the needs of the congregation that you were in charge of serving, I would say probably trans kids and abortion would be the least of your worries for what your parishioners are actually dealing with in life. But because somebody said those one or two things that you agree with, you're going off and supporting them when they're doing the exact opposite of what your parishioners need in order to live happily, freely, and with equity in their lives. And so it becomes a time at some point where we're going to have to stop just, deciding. And I'm not asking for blind allegiance to any party. That's not what I'm asking for.
Because we can't do that.
You can't do that either, right?
That gets us where we have been in terms of the extremes.
But this is what I'm saying.
On both sides.
But what I am asking for is compassion. What I am asking for is to look at the total package that a candidate brings. What I am asking for is to understand that the bottom 20% of earners are paying a higher share of their income in taxes, right? I'm asking for us to know these things about the system, because then if you see that when Trump gave, and his administration and the legislature gave tax breaks to the wealthiest of the wealthy, to the corporations that were making record-breaking profits, and then then in turn want to cut services to Medicaid, free
Medicare.
lunches for children, cut Medicare in order to make up the difference, then I would ask you, would that be damaged
some of
or
the
not?
argument against that is, for the purposes of radio, is that they would say that the corporations are the ones that were providing the jobs for people to be able to work a livable
Absolutely.
wage.
They're not paying them.
Absolutely
And so
But they're not
they
paying
would
them.
say that
They are
is
the
becomes
ones-
the balance to being able to
Absolutely.
deal with
They are the
reducing the
ones
debt
that are
ceiling
giving
down
the
because
low
of the
wages
ones.
in order
Yes.
for people to need Medicaid
Absolutely.
and free lunch.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
They took
I
that
would
money
say-
and they built SpaceX or whatever you want to call it.
And gave their profit holders and shareholders
There you go.
more
Shareholders and
money
increased
and
the buck.
did not give it to the
There
employees
you
who
go.
are the ones that are sitting in y'all's pews.
There you
And the
go.
reality is, in spite of all of that, he is still wildly popular.
Because of who
Because
he
of the
is.
racism.
He is
Because of
still
who he
Because
is.
of the hate mongering.
He's
Come
still-
on.
Is it-
and you have people that will blindly vote partisan line regardless.
On both sides.
On both sides.
Yeah.
And then you also, to your point, there are districts where you have people who are extreme, who can run unopposed, and they're going to get into office. And now what you see is a small percentage of the House or Senate or whatever that's holding up everything for everybody.
Can I tell you what Trump taught us? Trump taught us I can hate you openly.
Yes, he did.
And there's no shame about it.
Yes, he did.
And you can say whatever you want to say about me hating you openly, but it's my free speech and I can hate you openly and I can call you everything under the sun. That's what Trump taught us. And what he did is he galvanized every person that felt that way, who had to, in secrecy, had to hide their bigotry, had to hide their prejudice and their bias. And what he did, he galvanized them, because now they came up out the ditch and they came out the swampland from which they originated. And I said what I said. They came up out the swampland.
And do you see that amongst elected officials?
I absolutely see it, because you know what? There was in 2016 there was a Republican named John Kasich who was a
Kasich.
former governor of Ohio, who was a moderate, and he was a Christian, straight up Christian, but he was a moderate Republican.
Yes.
They didn't give him the time of day.
They did not.
And here's the reality of it: you could have looked at the character. As well. He was a good governor of Ohio by just the average.
And he was congressional
person.
budget
Look
office
at it.
chair too,
Yeah.
wasn't he?
He had federal experience and he had state experience. But as a Republican, I'm just saying, as a Republican, because I want to look at everybody fairly. He was by the average person.
Right.
He was a good Republican.
Most evangelicals would have supported him.
Absolutely,
I got you.
supported him, but they didn't want that, because at the end of the day,
He was
you
too
got to ask
balanced.
yourself the question: why did many other white evangelical churches break away from the Church of God in Christ? Because they were originally a part of the Church of God in Christ. And then they broke away and became Assembly of God, Church of God, and all the other stuff.
Yeah, 'cause we ain't gonna have a
Because
black
of
man.
race. They're not going to have a black man
We ain't gonna have a
lead
black
them.
man deciding that we gonna
at the
determine
very
if the
core-
voice of God does. We ain't
that's
doing
right.
that.
Clutch your pearls. Clutch your pearls. Clutch your pearls. If you watch it, clutch your pearls.
That's another shirt.
That's what
that's
clutch your
pretty
pearls. Right. So at the very basis and foundation of many of these evangelical organizations is racism. So now that racism is popping up and showing its ugly face all of a sudden because Trump has given you a platform, don't be shocked. It's showing you who
Would
they
you
are.
say that politics is duplicitous in nature by the science of it? Because it's really about, from my vantage point, it's about who's going to pay for what and why. So when you get down to the whys, it's I'm going to have more than your subgroup is going to have. And whether that's based on race or whether it's based on class,
I
would
wish
you say it's
that was it.
duplicitous in nature or no?
I wish that was it. But you got people who are literally the ones that need Medicaid voting for people that will take Medicaid because of their hate, because of their shared hate. They are literally voting against their own interests in order to be aligned with who they wish they were.
Give him an example. Alabama.
Thank you.
Mississippi.
Y'all can't
Texas,
read, can't feed your
Florida.
kids, kids
Louisiana.
can't get health care,
Come on.
can't get Medicaid
Come on.
expansion.
Some of the poorest
You're
cities.
the ones
South
that
Carolina.
need the help, but are
And
willing
some of
to
them
go
are
with the people
most,
that
are
will
the poorest
take them.
ones are happen to be white at the same
And
time.
who want
which
to
is
be
very
quote
interesting.
unquote anti-socialism until it's time that tornado came through,
Come on.
and now you
Now
want
you want the feds to
socialized
come in.
damage. You
And
know,
they're
damage
at the
control.
bottom. They're at the bottom of everything. They're at the bottom of everything.
Except for incarceration of black people,
There
now
we
it's at
go.
the top,
They're at
right?
the top.
And so when we were talking about, Montgomery and all of these places where, I mean, the folks just looking for a reason to get their lick back because they are so under such an oppressive system, right? That's why it's hard for me to even hear about American exceptionalism because of all of these things that exist. We can have states in our country where literacy rates are just abominable. We got the more education a black woman has, the larger the pay gap gets with the white male counterpart. But we want to say we're the best nation. That's how I know that most people that would say that America is number one is dealing with it from a white male heterosexual able-bodied lens, because for the rest of us, there are a lot of people looking at Belize, countries in Africa. It's just not panning out. The belief in our being number one is not panning out for a lot of people. The last thing I'll just say real quickly is, don't forget that man did not get the popular vote. Please do not forget that the Electoral College was to play in this. And the very reason why the founders and framers of our Constitution put the Electoral College into the Constitution was to keep y'all black votes in check.
That is true.
Okay? So don't forget that the system sometimes works exactly as it was designed.
Well, I think some people still feel like America is this because you look at, again, all the people that come to America, right, with this notion. I think that ideal is still in a lot of people's minds, that this is a
What
great place
idea?
you can come and be whatever you want
Land
to
of
be.
the free, home of the
Until
brave.
they put up the wire
There you
in the
go.
water
You
and
can
you
come-
can't even touch the...
Well, you could come and be whatever you want to be, depending on what country you come from
Thank you. And what you look like.
and what you look like. So that is true. Depends on where you come
So
from.
you're asking, how do we see this
London ain't
American
coming, you ain't
exceptionalism?
coming
Yeah.
from Jamaica or you ain't coming from Mexico. is
No,
what
but
you're
if you
saying.
coming
No.
from France and you coming from Great Britain, you come maybe from Spain, they might let you in
might
by
let you in.
Spain.
So let me go back again because I do want to talk.
Maybe.
How is it that a small percentage of extreme, because on both sides it seems like now you got extreme groups. How is it that these smaller percentages of elected officials are dictating the larger body? Can somebody explain that to me?
But before you get to that, I do want to push back on how we are framing the extremes. So I am whatever, leftist or far left. I own that, right? But when we're talking about political spectrums, we also have to realize that the country shifted real right. And I think that there's a lot of fear mongering as it pertains to some of the issues that we've discussed. So sometimes I get called radical because I think everyone should have food, right? But then there's someone on the radical right that thinks all black people should be exterminated. I do not think that those are equal in nature of our quote unquote extremes,
Right, I
right?
got you.
So I just want to push back because and I'm speaking just for myself, my identity as a left wing member of this society has been
Just say
framed.
progressive.
But I'm even a little bit different than the progressives because I'm pragmatic because of my black womanhood. So even different from that, I think leftist really is where I find myself. But honestly, fighting for free lunch and fighting for people to have places to stay and access to healthcare has been called radical and extreme. And so I just want to put that into perspective when people are saying extremes of parties. Now, when you think that there are, with this shift to when you see it within education, right? So when you have people talking to parents' rights, and so everybody's like, yeah, let's go with parents' rights. And then you get into the conversation and you realize that they weren't talking about parents of children with disabilities.
Right.
They weren't talking about parents of children that may be different. They weren't talking about parents who need food for their children. They were talking about parents like them. And so that's why I just want to make sure that we're understanding when we call it extremes of both sides, that extremes are not always created equal, and those terms can be relative. But I think what happens is sometimes, in my experience, no one at this table, moderation has been used as a code word by white moderates to get away from having to talk about issues of race and class. And so it has been, I think, energizing for my generation and younger to embrace the far left because we do want to talk about police brutality on Black people. We do want to talk about these things that are very much race and class oriented, gender oriented, disabled oriented. And when you look at some of the moderates, right, who will get together and do these compromise bills, from my experience on the state level, it is the safe stuff. It doesn't deal with the nastiness or the ugliness of it. And so just because you're moderate does not mean that the compromise is good for Black people. And so I just want to put those kind of qualifiers on how we're identifying our terms.
So let me address that. I don't see you as extreme, even though there may be those who may call you that.
Every day an email.
Right, but I don't see that. And I'm going to tell you why. What I see as extreme, which I know this is not you, there, like, for instance, I know a public defender who believes no one should ever go to jail no matter what they did. So you go out there and shoot somebody, kill somebody, they think that alternative punishment is sufficient for accountability. And my thing is, that's crazy, because we all know there are people who just make bad choices, may not be bad people. And those individuals you can work with to do alternatives, but there are also psychopaths out there. There are also sociopaths out there. And I do not want a sociopath living next to me. If that sociopath is going to go out there and shoot everybody, guess what? Lock him up. And lock him up and throw away the key. That's me. That's how I feel about that. Now, that's Tauntaun talking. And so, no, that's kind of what the attorney and talking. Okay, that's both of y'all. We are in agreement.
That's both of
We
y'all.
are in agreement.
You in agreement with yourself.
I'm in agreement with myself.
So, Todd, answer my question,
So-
man. How does a small group of people?
So easy. So I put that out there. I had to say that because I don't see her in that extreme. So the extremes to me are the ones who I think have lost sight of pragmatism, and it's all about ideology versus how I can be able to get certain
Reality.
things done and reality
I'd
done.
agree.
So you have extremes that is probably about 25% to 30% in, I think, each party. But let me deal with particularly 2016 because I saw it play out and we've been able to look at the research of it. Donald Trump ran against, I think it was 16 people at some point in that primary election. And what he was able to do is galvanize, based on his behavior and based on his character, the worst of the worst of those states that he went through. And he got about 25 to 30% of those votes, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, margin of error. And so while you had the others split the vote. So he was consistently getting somewhere in the neighborhood about 25 to 30% of that vote in each state while everybody else split. And then as they begin to fall off, the number increased. Because now you are getting momentum. And once that steamship start moving and getting that motion going, unfortunately, it's hard to slow down that pace. And if you remember, the networks, all of them, including liberal networks, were giving him mad playtime for free because they didn't think he had a prayer chance of getting the nomination. So they thought it was funny to talk about Donald Trump. So they would parade his name out there, and he got all this millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of free advertisement where his colleagues were not getting that. And so you just created a monster. And by the time they realized they had created a monster, it was too late. Now people are taking him serious. Now they're thinking, oh no. So now all of a sudden, let's expose him. Let's talk about all the dirty stuff that he's done. Let's talk about all the things he said on TV about touching women, private parts and all of those things. Let's put all that out. Let's talk about how he's had affairs and all this kind of craziness. He can't be the Republican nominee. Let's put all that out there. And it was too late because now you have awakened the beast. Now you have stoked the bear, and now the smart people have come out and they said, we're going to pay y'all back for 8 years of Obama. Because don't let it be not said that people were not mad about Obama being in that house for 8 years. And they said, we're going to pay you back for the 8 years that y'all had to make us be in this, to deal with him in this. And you know, they called him names.
So he got in.
He got in.
All right, and he did his time.
And there were consequences.
But he's still, in spite of everything, wildly popular.
Yes.
Because even more black people today.
You know why? Because
Help me
they
understand
still
this.
love him the person that has now created a culture.
Yeah, the
where
provocative
I
nature
can
of who he
be
is.
Who I want to be,
Right.
say what I want to say,
Anarchy
do what
at its
I want to
best.
do, and guess what? No one is going to throw shade on me because guess what? He's doing it. He look all right. He's getting away with it, and so he has been Teflon Don up until this point. You notice?
And I'm definitely not
Yes.
saying
Yeah.
every single one, but I have to say this, right? There are some black men that I know that supported Trump that literally needed more hugs in life, like just period. And they are getting the hugs from the people that they're supporting, and they do not even realize. They don't even realize
Why
that
hugs? Why hugs?
because they need love. And these people that are showing them love and parading them around, they don't even realize that they are talking cast stuff about them behind their backs. When they say the thug, when Trump said the other week that people that would steal should be shot in the store and not even get out, right? That there are racial undertones to
yeah.
every single thing, that your black self is included in what they're saying, but they will utilize
Utilize it,
you
yep.
in order to shave off percentages of black vote because they know that puts the Democratic powerhouse in jeopardy. And so I have not to this day, and if y'all are out there, please do not call me because I don't need to, but I have not met a black man that supported Trump that it was not about ego or about personality. It was never about policy. Let's be very clear. Unless it was, I didn't get a fair share in life or a fair shake in life, so it's got to be those immigrants. It's got to be those gays. It's got to be these other people. And we have talked about personal responsibility on this show, and I do not see it a lot with them. And I'm just saying that for the record for me.
And Kevin, can we just keep it real? You talk about consequences, right? So here are some of the everyday in your face consequences. When a 13, 14, 15-year-old knock on the door looking for his younger sibling,
Lord have mercy, you went there.
and he's shot in the face because he's a black boy who is always going to be seen as a black man, no matter how small he is and how young he is, but it's going to always be viewed by many as a man. And he knocks on the door and they shoot him in the face.
No, that's real.
Or when
that's
a
real,
young
man.
mother who kids are outside playing, and because the neighbor doesn't like the fact that her kids are outside playing, and she's cussing them out and she's calling them all kind of end names, and the mother comes to talk to her about why are you addressing my kids the way you're addressing my kids, and she is shot through the door. So you are a threat to me because you're at my door, not you're in my house.
That's right.
But you are outside the other side of the door and you are shot through the door.
Yeah.
That is the real everyday in your face consequences of 2016.
And don't forget that the black man that was indicted along with former President Trump is still in jail because he did not have enough money for a lawyer.
Come on.
So you're gonna be out here committing crimes
Come
for
on.
this man, but they didn't get you out. Don't
No.
forget that. So
No.
it's
Okay, fair.
I'm just saying we got to understand what the systems are doing to people beyond the parties, beyond the politicians themselves. And I think that once we have a more in tune and engaged electorate, there would be more accountability.
Okay, fair. And let's get off Trump because I don't want this whole show to be about him.
Right, right.
Right? Because on the Dem side, you would think that with all of what you all are describing, this would be a landslide for the Dems to come in and say, hey, this is an opportunity because look at all the craziness going on over here. Quite frankly, that isn't happening. Quite frankly, I think a lot of people, Ray, may be concerned if Biden runs, he's 80, I don't know what he's 80, whatever he is, right?
80, 81. somewhere in there.
Many
Yeah.
people fear, will you live
Long
through the
enough.
next 4 years?
Well, I think what you're seeing is what they've been describing in terms of the structural issues of electoral politics, because rather than see a well-competent, well-abled, policy wonk, if I could use that term, perfectionist move into the White House as a black female, before we ever see that happen, because we all didn't vote for Hillary, so before we ever see that happen, we're going to vote for this 81, 82-year-old man again, because we're not going to see her become the person that's the lead.
want me to go there.
But Nikki Haley's already
it's
come
now-
out and
They want me to go
said.
there.
But Nikki Haley's already come out and said we don't
they
want
want me to
Biden for that reason because
Right.
we can't trust
what Kamala's going to do.
We can't trust her.
That's what they're
Can
saying.
we just keep it real, y'all? Y'all don't want to say it, but let's just go ahead and keep it real. America is not going to vote for Kamala Harris. Let's just call it what it is.
Correct.
And that's the reason why they don't want Biden running for the second term, because they are afraid if he died in that White House, she would be president. So in reality, this vote is not really, for many, about Biden. This vote is about Kamala.
Yeah.
And a black woman running the country.
And a black woman running the
right?
country. No, there it is. A black woman running the country.
Because
I think it's a little bit more than that, but I'll let you have that. But I think it's a little bit more.
Well, if you want to say that she would be, I'll go here. Extreme left for certain evangelical groups.
No, she's not considered extreme left.
That could be
she's
maybe
not
a
considered
reason.
extreme left. No, in fact,
I'm
she
saying
was
for
a
the purposes of
prosecutor.
radio.
She was a prosecutor.
Which is why I'm
in
saying
fact, there were many in the
she's-
black community who did not like her
for-
because she was a prosecutor.
In California, she
and
did
for
what she had to
those
do.
who said they didn't like her because she was a prosecutor, you go kick rocks. Because I'm sorry, you
Another
out
t-shirt,
there,
another t-shirt.
another t-shirt. Because if you out there committing
The
crime,
sister had to
you
do her
gotta
job.
Do your job.
She had to do her
Stop
job
committing
with the
crime.
level of
But there are
crime that was
different
taking
ways
place.
of
I
being
mean, there's different ways. I know. I get that. I get that.
But
But,
no,
I'm
But
just
at the
saying.
time, what was happening in LA at the time,
She was
in
in San Francisco.
Francisco,
So
there-
I'm talking when she was at the state level.
Yeah.
There are some things that I think I will own as a Democrat for the party, right? So I'm not speaking on behalf of everybody, but I think that there have been leaders in place within the party that are still acting like and navigating the world as if the Republican Party is the Republican Party of the 80s and the 90s.
It is not.
Yes.
And so the messaging right now, we are really talking about, are we going to have a democracy or are we going to have fascism?
Right.
That is literally
That's
what we're
conversation.
talking about.
That's where we are.
They
I'd
have
agree.
said
I'd
that they
agree.
will take rights to vote. Like
Yeah.
they've said it. They said
Yes.
that they will take all kinds of rights. They've shown it through their Supreme Court, the rights that they're going after to include affirmative action and that black venture capital group that
Yes.
they're going after. Okay, so
Yes.
they're very clear about what they're doing. What I think the problem has been amongst Democrats for our messaging is that we're still operating in an old world. We have not moved up and we have not shared, I think, the sense of urgency that we are actually in right now. And there are some of us that truly understand, will we have a country soon? Are some of the types of, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, like, when you have people that want to tear down systems that are helping poor people or tear down systems that are helping black people, as leaders within black communities, we have to consider the impact of some of these policy decisions that are being put forward.
Yeah.
I also don't know that the Democratic Party in large has within itself come to terms with the fact that black women have been telling y'all exactly what to do and how to do it and what you need to do when, where, how, and all of that for years, and it has
For a
not
few
been
cycles.
and it has not been listened to.
Yeah.
And so there are a few of us that find frustration where it's behind closed doors. We are telling you what needs to be done. There were fights about redistricting where at the time Delegate LaSharice Aird and we now people will come to us and say, "Oh, y'all were right," but it's too late, you know. So I think there are some real conversations that the Democratic Party has to have about their gatekeeping and how they have let young black women be leaders from the sideline, but not leaders to step up in certain positions. And this idea that we're having conversations about policy with people who are not interested in. Matt Gaetz does not care about policy.
Does not.
Matt Gaetz does not care about anything but
Does
his
not.
own personal power.
There you go.
Right. And that's the extremism. So we're not having conversations that acknowledge, in a sense, that sense of extremism. We're still talking to the middle, and there's no one there. Right.
Oh, wow.
And so I think that, as I've been working with some folks for, upcoming elections, I'm just imploring people to listen to some of the younger voices, because if you want to encourage or inspire a younger generation and you do not have younger people as the messengers to tell you what would hit, then you're in an echo chamber and you're just talking to yourself and then wondering why they're not showing up. Now, luckily, for whatever we have to say about younger generations, this younger generation, in a lot of senses, have stepped up on environment and gun violence prevention. They are the ones that are going through the drills within the schools. They are the ones that would like a healthy earth to live on when it's time for them to come in and raise their children. So you're seeing this young wave of activism that is not aligned with the party. It just, there are some overlaps within party platforms or whatever, but they're not outright Democrats, right? They are the ones that are going to save us. And so as we're having conversations about what our young people are and are not, that's why there's such a sense of urgency for me that the church and the schools and the things and the systems step up to encourage them to be their best, because they are literally the ones that will be able to fix this. But we're just not there.
So do you ever see more than a two-party system for our country? Is that possible? Is that realistic? It just, because you look at what you just described, right? You're telling me that the party that minorities should align themselves with don't even acknowledge black women to a certain degree, right? And then on the other hand, you're dealing with all the racist stuff. So where do we go to find something that fits? It doesn't seem like.
But let me also remind you of an earlier point that I made. If there are no black people in the room, who is pushing current power structures for it to be different?
Right.
And so the answer to that dynamic that we've just described is not for black people to withdraw and put our heads in the sand.
I agree.
It is to get out for whatever party you want to get out for, or whatever issue, is to get out, be present, and be active to force the people have to force the system to respond to us.
But you understand how the average voter feels like, I'm one voice. How can I fix a system that looks like it's broken?
Listen, that one voice, there are 1,000 people listening right now that all think that their one voice doesn't matter. And I implore you to understand that you are 1,000 voices, and 1,000 voices absolutely do matter. If I had 1,000 voices to come to Richmond and say, we're going to do something about gun violence prevention in a meaningful way, it's going to happen. Yeah. But when you have just a small voice up against a large industry, things don't change. Don't forget, Frederick Douglass told us, like, I'm doing a remix, but power will concede nothing without a demand. Right. And if the people are not making demands for the changes that they seek, and I am not talking about the single mother that has 4 jobs just trying to make ends meet, who is never going to make it to Richmond, but there are a lot of people within our listening audience that have the means, the wherewithal, and the capacity to come to Richmond or to send an email to say, this is good, this is bad. Go to their city council meeting, go to their school board meeting, speak up for these issues. And I'm just asking for those of you that can. Voting is the first step. It's this other stuff that matters, because whether you think about it or not, right now is actually the time that we'll be deciding who's running in 2028.
Yes.
Who's running in 2024 is already a foregone conclusion in some senses, right? But if you're not even at the table now, 2028's going to come and then you're going to be mad again.
Mm-hmm. So I go back to my question, Ton. 3-party, more than 2-party system, is that even possible? Do you even see that as a scenario?
I don't see it as far as a third party having the same level of visibility and influence as the 2 parties that we have now. No.
I think there's an intermediate step.
What is that?
So there's something called ranked choice voting that's being discussed, where it kind of combats some of the things that we've talked about, where, you know, somebody in a local election can win like mayor with 20% of the vote because there were just so many people running, and it kind of makes whoever's running get to the 51%. I do think that that's going to become a thing within our lifetime. And then I think the next step, probably not our lifetime, but the next generation's lifetime, I do believe that there's going to be a third party.
Well, you have that already in some states, like in Georgia, where you have to have 51% of the vote in order for you to.
So they have automatic runoffs.
Yeah,
but this would happen in one election.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about people coming back, because that don't happen a lot. But I mean, I think there are some mechanisms, but they're still seen as new and experimental. So but again, I don't want the lesson for folks to leave with saying, well, since it's just these two parties and I don't rock with either of those parties, I'm going to do nothing. Then be an independent, but still be something and active and engaged.
So that's the question for me. Do you all are in it? I guess for me, Ray, we sit. I see just so much partisanship. Do you ever imagine our government being able to function like it's supposed to function and put needs first as opposed to partisanship?
When was that how our government ran?
So
and whose needs are we talking about?
Fair. Okay, so let me rephrase the question.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like it's more polarized than it's ever been.
Yes, it is.
Do y'all agree with that?
I
Yes.
do agree.
Do you ever sense that, okay, we're not always going to agree on everything, but it don't have to be this polarizing?
But here's my problem in Richmond. There are people who work well together across the aisle behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm.
It is not necessarily us who are not willing to work together. But if our voters knew, like there's some folks from out West Virginia that if they knew that their delegate had sat down with me to work on a bill,
They wouldn't get elected.
he would be
again.
primary. He would be primary from the right. So I think that it's the chicken and the egg situation again, but I think some of this is coming from the voters and not generated amongst the politicians. And so if someone is running for office solely in order to win, they're going to do everything that they can in order to win, to stay in power.
Right.
But then there are those of us who are running to make a difference, who will put it on the line and risk it all.
I don't think it's enough of y'all to do
No.
that.
And I understand that, but you got to understand the 95th district demands that of me.
Right.
So sometimes you have to
Because
be
of the way the
responsive,
district's been drawn
right?
now.
And
Yeah.
I know because y'all come up to me when I'm trying to get my little ice cream in the grocery store and tell me exactly how you feel about what I'm doing. But there's not enough of that.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So to the point of out west or wherever, whether I'm running unopposed, I don't have to worry about not being elected. It's a different mentality, right? You're not accountable. You don't have to be.
There are okay. So
There are ways to
I
be
do
held
a lot
accountable.
of lobbying and doing a General Assembly for public safety bills or against certain public safety bills, and you'd be amazed at the audience that I get as a Democrat going up there, because I'm a Democrat, but then I'm also a prosecutor. And so there are people who will talk to me and have for real conversations with me about public safety issues. And it doesn't matter what party they are a part of. So
But not everybody's taking a picture with you, though.
they're not going to take a picture with me, but they'll have a backdoor conversation with me. And the fact that I'm able to even have that conversation and have that audience says a lot about Virginia. However, let's take it federal. Federally, because of the gerrymandering, I think we have to see a new legislative map in order for us to see the change that we want to see, because people are not going to change if they are not going to be held accountable for the foolishness that they do in office. That's just the bottom line.
And that's what you're seeing with the Alabama case in front of the Supreme
Yes.
Court. They are refusing to draw a map that is reflective of the number of African Americans that live in Alabama and the political power that should come along with those numbers. So they are drawing maps literally to dilute the voting power of African Americans. Like that is their sole purpose of the map. So when Anton is talking about gerrymandering, that's what we mean. But here in Virginia, it's a little bit different. I carried a bill that made political, racial, and prison gerrymandering illegal. So currently in Virginia, those maps wouldn't have even gotten to the Supreme Court for real, because it's illegal. So this is what I'm saying. Like there are ways for us to get engaged, to protect ourselves from what's happening in other states. So sometimes the federal issues feel like they're too big, right? So that's what I'm saying. Even get involved on the local level. When Newport News was drawing the lines for what would be the South, Central, and North District, right? Get involved. There are so many things that you can get involved with that don't have to be solving racism, right? Or feeding everyone. There are little, small issues that have large impact that you can do right here. And I don't care if you're Republican or Democrat, you should care that one person, one vote. Right. And even that we can't agree on. So when we're talking about these political systems and political parties, and I remember, when my uncle would sit down with the Republicans in the 90s and things, it is hard for me to hear as a Democrat that I should be more bipartisan when the people on the other side of the aisle are literally working to take Black voters' rights from them.
They're more entrenched.
And so I hear the call for bipartisanship. I hear the call for moderation, but I just want to make sure that we all know what those words mean and what the impact could be for this current iteration of the two-party system. And so I think, we just got to be careful what we asking for, because if you want bipartisanship right now, that is fascism.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's a mixture of things, but you have to realize we have what we have going on in Alabama and Louisiana and Mississippi and all these other places because years ago, back in the 90s, the 1965 Voting Rights Act was basically made impotent because they took the teeth out of the enforcement mechanism for the Voting Rights Act. So as a result of that, you had the Department of Justice who had oversight over every state, particularly those states who had a historical background in racial discrimination when it came to voting. And they had to submit these district maps to the Department of Justice. And if the Department of Justice felt that there was racial gerrymandering going on, they could sue, and those maps would not go into effect. But when you had decisions made in the Supreme Court in the 90s that took away the political teeth of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, then these southern states, mainly who they were, these southern states were left to their own ability and their own will. And that's when you had states like Alabama who said, I'll draw whatever map I want to draw. You're not going to do anything about it. And we're going to even defy this now, current Supreme Court, because we feel like, hey, we got 3 more votes on our side. We should be able to survive this. But the Supreme Court lately have been knocking down these gerrymandering maps, which has been shocking to me. This current Supreme Court has been knocking them down. So we're going to see. Well,
and that's the reason why, again, the federal level may feel out of reach. But here in Virginia, we have the Voting Rights Act of Virginia we based it off of the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and we got it passed right here. I was the lead sponsor on that. So what I'm just trying to remind people, there are some good things that are happening, right? It's amongst a lot of mess, but some of the good things that are happening happen because people showed up in large numbers to make it happen. Like there are, and then also too, like when you're trying to weigh out, the difference between a Trump and a Biden, if you can't list 5 of their policy proposals, then I need you to do more research because there are some things that I personally think have made President Biden one of the most impactful presidents in our lifetime because of some of the legislation that he has gotten through. Now, did we message it right? No. Do y'all know about it? Probably not. Okay, that's what the Democrats have to own. But if you're doing your own research on candidates individually based off your own morals and values and weighing out, not who do I agree with 100%, but who do I even get to 80, 70% with, I bet you it's not just 2 issues.
But see, people have never voted primarily on policy, and I think that's the challenge here. People vote party line, right? It doesn't matter who the candidate is because the thought is it's the enemy to vote for the other side. Right. Even if the other person has great ideas, great policies, I would never vote for them because they're not a Democrat or they're not a Republican. And
well, right now that feels true.
That's how it is.
But no, I'm saying that feels true right now. If you like, for me, from my perspective, if I want everyone who wants to vote to have the ability to vote, because even the folks that believe that to be true on the Republican side have not stood up and said, hey guys, cut it out. Right. Stop cutting back voting rights, then you actually are the enemy to democracy. And so it's hard for me to fight back on that polarization when it's true in some senses.
It's very true.
And so what I'm thinking is the way that we can get to that is that if people, regardless of party, get activated off issues, if you are a Republican or a Democrat under the sound of our voice and you believe that people should have voting rights, get active on that. And we can have bipartisanship on the people, even if the leaders won't be. But I don't think what you're looking for to be a change from the elected officials is going to be, it has to come from the voters, from the we the people.
I agree to that. And I think to the point, the voters have to see how their vote is going to actually make a difference.
Yes.
And I think that's where the apathy is coming in.
Yeah.
I think that's where people are like, y'all just got too much, what am I going to do to help change all the mess that I see? But I do want to commend you because, you're at state level, you're not at federal level. And most of what we vote, the bigger elections tend to be federal. And your state and local don't get the attention that you deserve. So I do want to commend you. So we got to run. We out of time. And
I need to correct something. That was a 2013 Supreme Court decision of Shelby County versus Holder.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I just want to correct something.
All right, I appreciate that, man. We got to run. Good talking about this topic. And so, again, educate yourselves, y'all.
Yes.
Get yourself ready because elections are coming and all elections have consequences. So, again, check us out. WHOV, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, podcast, wherever they are, we are available. Until next time, be blessed and be a blessing to someone else. Peace.
Okay, I hope you loved it as much as we did. Thank you for joining us for another fire show for the crew. Listen, you can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and any streaming platform that you're using for your podcast. Share with a friend, expand the family. Listen, we're trying to do this thing with all of you as often as we possibly can. We're looking forward to you joining us again for our next show.